Terry, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Andrew?
I'm fine. Thanks for agreeing to the podcast today.
All right. Well, I'll agree to something. We'll make it happen. It'll be great.
All right. So let me, so very quickly, Food Innovators is the name of the podcast. We talk to wonderful, intelligent, smart, crazy, thoughtful, creative people in the food space about what they're doing and what motivates them and that sort of thing. So you're our guinea pig for the day.
Okay. Yeah, some of those descriptors fit me. Probably the crazy most often. Yeah.
So why don't you very quickly tell us who you are and what you do? And you don't need to limit it to the career stuff. You can be broad if you wish.
All right, paint a picture of who I am.
There you
All
go.
right, so one of the things I am is the outreach lead for food and crafts at Kickstarter. So I've been here for about 3 years at the wonderful and wild world that is Kickstarter. And I am something. I mean, what is an outreach lead? It's like a general idea. I go out into the world and try to find people making interesting projects that could use a little help with Kickstarter. I like to think of myself as a sherpa, a Kickstarter sherpa. There's a lot of great stuff on the site that you could go ahead and make a project. You don't need me to make an amazing project, but I really hope that if I do happen to meet you somehow out there, virtually or in real life, that I can help you make a better project or something to align what you're trying to do with what the site can do for you. So I go to, what does that mean? I go to a lot of conferences. I create lots of events. I do travel around quite a bit. I answer a lot of emails, and I also get to do fun things like podcasts. So anywhere I can help spread the information and help people do what they want to do with the platform makes me happy. I'm also the food person here. So we have a food category on Kickstarter, a site well known for video games and movies and slim wallets and all kinds of wonderful things. But there's food. There's a lively food community tucked in here that spans all kinds of places. And maybe we'll go into that in a little bit. So that is my full-time life. I have another full-time life. I'm a cookbook author. I've been writing vegan cookbooks for it is a decade. With the way cookbooks work, if anyone out there has ever written a cookbook, it's a long-term lead time, a lot of things going on. So yeah, over 10 years of my life writing cookbooks. And I also did the math recently. I've been in the food business sphere, food world, for probably 20 years now. That includes working on too much time.
Believe you.
Spent working for food companies, like doing product development, designing packaging, making food, nutritional breakdown labels, traveling across the world to go supervise the printing of like labels for candy bars. I've also worked in restaurants. I've worked on food trucks. I've done a lot of DIY cooking shows, including the one that I might be most well known for is a post-punk kitchen with my co-author Isa Chandra Moskowitz.
Post-punk kitchen?
The post-punk kitchen, yes. That existed over a decade ago. Before we did the cookbooks, we were making incredibly no-budget shows in her kitchen on BCAT, which is Brooklyn Public Access. So, yeah. And I have other cooking shows I've done as well. So, yeah. So I do a lot of that, do a lot of very rando food things. I cook a lot. I go to probably too many hardcore and punk metal shows. And I love going to conferences, and I love meeting people making things. So, yeah.
Wow.
That's me. That's a bit of me.
Okay, we're done. That's it.
That's it. Done. Best podcast ever.
How did it happen? Is this sort of something that you just have a personal passion for, and you just sort of or you fell into it and it just sort of snowballed? Or I'm just sort of, was there a strategy, or just sort of a
strategy? I've been strategizing this since I was born. I've always been interested in food in some way. I was a weird child in that I read the labels of my ingredients on the back of my cereal boxes or whatever. I grew up reading a lot of cookbooks and reading a lot of Woman's Day, magazines that had recipes in them. And I was just interested in health at a way too early age, as a teenager, and kind of weaving into the world of becoming vegetarian and then eventually vegan. You have to learn how to cook. You just do. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is now currently in 2016 is the best time ever to be like a vegan if you wanted. Like there's tons of amazing restaurants and products out there. But when I started 2 weeks ago, back when I was, that was much longer than that. I had a lot of cooking I had to do. I had to cook for myself. So that kind of branched out my love of food. And, I went to cooking school like as a youngster. And yeah.
So it's a great time to be in food. Why do you think it's a great time to be an entrepreneur in food?
I think it has to do something with the injection of the startup culture into the food world. So back in the day when I was, just dabbling in these things or working for other people, we call these businesses. We call this food businesses. Before this idea of startup, you just started a food business. And to me, there was some kind of, not coming from a business background and not coming from like, I don't have an MBA or anything like that. It seemed like you had to really, there's a high bar of entry of having to know a lot and have a lot of, come from money and all this kind of stuff. But I think the cool thing that's going on now, like here in America, there's always been this spirit of small business and entrepreneurship. But I think more than ever, there are incredible resources out there that are amazing to me, that are incredibly open and welcoming to anyone of any background. And and the one cool thing I've loved about working at Kickstarter is I meet a lot of career changers. I meet a lot of people who they were a fashion designer or a lawyer or something. And then somewhere along the way in their 30s or 40s, they're like, you know what? I want to do what matters most to me in life. I need to follow my passion. And those people are making big changes. They're making 180 changes or 360 changes or whatever you want to call it, like to embrace being an entrepreneur in food. And I think it's easier than ever. I mean, it's always going to be hard, but I think there are more resources than ever that will help anyone out there discover that I can try this out. I can try this out and see what happens.
It's interesting. I was at a talk recently where you and I have to kind of get up on our hind legs on a regular basis and talk about this stuff in front of big crowds of heckling people. Mm-hmm. In this case, they asked me, "What's the most interesting innovation in entrepreneurial finance in the food sector?" Mm. And I actually said Kickstarter. I said Kickstarter and I said accelerators because 10 years ago, to your point, people had to, raise a certain amount of money from friends and family, and that was pretty much it. And it was not easy. And now there are not quick fixes or necessarily magic beans or anything, but with Kickstarter, with the ability to connect to your market and have them invest in their passions by committing to a project that doesn't even necessarily exist yet, or a product doesn't exist yet, or for a company to get into an accelerator when they're 3 weeks past an idea. Mm-hmm. Those things are really starting to energize the food space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how that's really giving people the confidence to launch into something that is intimidating. I think it is. I still think there's a lot to learn. And even if you think you know things, I know people that have been in different aspects of the food industry launching into something else, and they're like, oh, I didn't know I had to do this, or oh, this is harder than I thought, this is taking longer than I thought. But knowing that there are other people out there doing the same thing, I think is incredibly a big boost for anyone.
I found the food industry to be a lot more inclusive than other industries I've been a part of.
Yeah.
Where people are, as you say, a lot of people are in the food industry because they're passionate about it, and they're actually open with each other and prepared to help out each other to kind of move things forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I only kind of know the food industry, and like in many ways, like and publishing to a certain degree too. And I feel that this spirit of helping each other out very much aligns with my own personal values that come from kind of DIY and punk and stuff like that, where let's try to help each other out. And also there's the idea that I think more and more the mainstream Americans are becoming acquainted with, that there is this old-fashioned idea of food as being this high top-level thing. There's big food, and that is often like there's a lot of mystery around it, and there's a lot of like much needed questioning about what's going on. And then there's actually the ground level. There's people who are really driven to make a difference in the food system in some way or another, making a product or having a farm, whatever it is. And I'm very excited to see that becoming just an idea in people's minds that we can eat this way. We can eat this way with, products that are not necessarily handed down from us from like the giant mega corporations.
I think consumers are starting to ask difficult questions.
Yeah.
And because they are prepared to now start thinking about those things and asking those questions, it means that even the bigger companies are starting to understand that maybe the next 10 years aren't going to be exactly the same as the last 10 years in terms of the food they produce, how they produce it, and so on.
Yeah. We're going to see some interesting headlines. We're going to see some interesting headlines and some interesting products. We've already seen that beginning. I'll make some popcorn.
So when you're in your travels looking for a cool company to help, a cool food company to help with their Kickstarter and so on, what makes you sort of go wow nowadays?
So I definitely want to it's not necessarily about being cool in some ways. I mean, I have my own personal preferences, but I do see that I think there's the right kind of company that I think could really make the most out of Kickstarter, at least at the stage they're in. It's a company that really has a pretty good idea what their brand identity is. They've embraced it on some level, and they basically have an idea how to do it visually. Because what Kickstarter is, it's still the internet, right? We look at a website. How long do we spend looking at websites and on videos? Like an incredibly tiny amount of time, because our attention online is incredibly just divided so much that it's a company that really knows how to say what they're doing in a very clear, concise way, that knows their brand, that has some great imagery, great food photos, that really can kind of tell that story. That's the kind of thing that I go, oh, wow, look at that. Even if it's something I personally might not need in my life, if I see that they really know how to tell a story visually, that they can kind of convey who they are with confidence, that's something that makes me pay attention. Yeah.
And you think if a company is good at communicating who they are, why they exist, and engaging with their market, is there a market for pretty much every product in the food space, providing they can communicate that in a strong, clear way?
Yeah, I can't vouch for every single kind of food out there, but I'm a big fan of niche. So I really feel that the more you try to be something for every single person, I think your message gets diluted. What you're making probably gets fuzzy. But and it's what I kind of like. I guess I'm a niche person myself. I like very specific things, and I like things that might be off the beaten path. But I think Kickstarter is also a great place for that as well. I think if you have if you even think I know who my audience is, and it's someone who likes X, Y, and Z. I think you stand a stronger chance of knowing how to use the platform better than someone who's I have something everybody loves and I have to make it for everybody. What is your story then? It's hard to me, I think that's harder to convey what you're doing if you try to be something that everybody loves.
So I guess what it's coming down to is having a product or service or whatever it might be on Kickstarter, with product obviously, which allows you to be very targeted in who you're talking to, and it needs to be the most passionate potential consumers, right?
Absolutely. I mean, crowdfunding is so emotional, and that means passion. And if you look at the non-food projects on the site, the big categories, those are all driven by very niche but incredibly passionate groups that will shout from the rooftops that they love this thing, and that other people that love that thing just as much will hear them and do the same. So there definitely is this chain reaction effect that when you really know who you are as far as a brand and a company and a product, and you can express that in a clear way on Kickstarter, and you know who you're expressing that to, it's kind of like a forest fire. Everything just kind of ignites and kind of rolls from there.
So it's like having a perfect storm. If you know who your tribe is, and you can appeal to them, and they're passionate about what you're doing, then that's a lot of the energy you need to kind of go through the process and be successful in it.
Yeah, that's a big key. I mean, there are definitely some accidents that happen, some happy accidents on the site. You definitely can connect with audiences you didn't know loved what you did, or I have a non-food story. I have a woman who did a quilting project. She wanted to raise funds for to get a piece of equipment for their quilting collective, And they ended up connecting with and this was in Alabama someplace. They ended up connecting with this vast quilting group somewhere in Canada. They didn't know existed, and supported them and told their story, and really was just incredibly heartwarming. But this happens all the time though in other projects and in food as well. And it's important to see the trends and to kind of see oh yeah, I do like to make biltong. Wow, there's a biltong community on Kickstarter, so that's one thing to think about. There are these communities on the site, but also what you're doing, if you can really find who that can appeal to, you can really work magic. And I feel that's stuff you have to do anyway if you're going into the crazy world of making a food product, right?
Do you need to bring that passionate tribe with you before you start on Kickstarter, or are you able to get that tribe as part of being on Kickstarter?
Both. So you do need to come prepared. You do need to bring your tribe with you. You do need to do the due diligence and make a plan. So the one thing about Kickstarter is they've done a lot of work in the sense of making it very easy to launch a project. Easier than ever. You can just go on the site. You can build your profile. You can build your project. You can do it in a day. You can launch probably in another day, and you're live. But if you didn't do any preparation at all, chances are, you're not going to get the kind of success that you are hoping. When we see those very incredibly successful projects that overfund like crazy, they did a lot of work. They thought about who their audience is and how they're going to talk to them. And they did it for weeks or months in advance. So yeah, come prepared, and the success will follow on the site.
So it's not a lottery ticket. This is not a turn up, throw your project out there, wait for the lucky number to fall, and you're going to end up with your millions of dollars. This is it's almost like a part-time job.
Yeah, I will not lie. Kickstarter, when it's live, it can feel like it's taking over your life. Pretty much all creators tell me that to some degree, but that's where preparation is your friend.
Somebody's got to make a movie of this, because I've seen some of our companies go through it, and it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You have that sort of dead zone in the middle where it's really quiet. You have an immediate rush if you've done your homework, and you're getting great sales for the first 2 or 3 days, and you're like, holy crap, in another 27 days I'm going to be a gazillionaire. And then in the middle there's this kind of plateau or this slowdown, and they're depressed as hell. They're like, oh my God, we're not going to do this. This is it's almost a TV moment.
Yeah, it's definitely a crowdfunding rom-com. They're like, is this going to work out? Everything was so great. And then doing your work and doing the homework, everything will come for a great upswing. And chances are you'll fund and everyone will get what they want. And actually, when the funding happens, that's when your job really starts.
Oh shit, yeah.
That's when you actually have to do what you say you're going to do, because there's hundreds of people that believe in you.
So what's the biggest screw-ups people make, both as part of the pre-launch, launch, and then post-launch?
I think I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I think pre-launch, not doing your homework, not really thinking about what can I do, and not only researching your audience and bringing them to Kickstarter and all that kind of stuff, but kind of planning what you can do while you're live, because I know my food people, and if it's one thing that they are not, is they don't have a ton of time where they're just kind of sitting around twiddling their thumbs every day. They're usually out making their food product. They're in their commercial kitchens, or they're out in the studio, making whatever, or making plans or meetings. There's a lot of going on, and not even including having a personal life on top of all that, right? So when your project is live, it is really it's intense. There's a limited amount of time to get the word out to reach that minimum amount of funding. So I see a lot of times people who did some work, but they didn't plan quite enough. And then when the project is live, they basically get too caught up in everything else that they're doing to pay attention to it. It's like a kitten. You can't, lock it up in your apartment and go away on vacation for 2 weeks. You can't do that. You really have to go and take care of that Kickstarter every day. So that's the saddest thing I see. That I'm I can tell too when the project seems like it's been abandoned. So yeah.
What about after they've been successful? What are the biggest watch outs, screw ups, things they need to really be cognizant of once they've been funded and they've got the money in the bank?
Yeah. So 14 days later, you got that money. And now you have to do what you say you got to do. And that's the time when to really you send out those surveys and really you need to apply yourself and see who pledged to what. There's some organizing you're going to have to do. There's some who needs what and when can I deliver this? And I think the thing that always happens, because Kickstarter is about things that haven't been made yet. There's this unknown era. There's this unknown place you're going into. You're making something you probably haven't really made before yet. Problems are going to happen. You're going to have some kind of setback. Something is going to happen. You're going to have a problem with supplies. A permit's going to fall through.
Shipping's more than you thought, and you lose money.
Huge. Shipping is huge. Do everything you can to calculate your shipping and bake it in. Just set that up right away. That's the biggest headache. Biggest headache we see with creators. So problems happen after you funded, and setbacks are going to happen. Being quiet and not letting your backers know via updates. That is also one of the biggest problems I've seen. Because then we hear from the backers. The backers write to Kickstarter, of course, as they should, asking, hey, where is this person? I haven't gotten my thing. It's been 3 months. And I often hear the creator is really doing their best, but they're scared because something happened and they can't fulfill, or it's going to take longer than they thought. Talk to your backers. Do a post. Our community is becoming more and more understanding as the site ages. That this is something called it's like a weird store I bought into. I bought something, but I'm not getting it for a while because it hasn't been made yet. Mm-hmm.
I've seen text updates. Do people do video updates?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's some good ones out there too. Combining video, text, images, showing the problem with the design and maybe doing a little circle around it, highlighting it, make use of that.
But just for example, getting in front of the camera and saying, hey, we said we were going to get this out in 15 days, but we've just had this blow up in, I don't know, whatever, and it's going to turn out to be 30 days, and really sorry, but we're, this is what we've got in prototype, blah, 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 blah. And having a real open conversation with your tribe is the way to go, especially if there are screw-ups or delays?
I think that would be great. I mean, hold your puppy or your child,
Where did the kitten go?
Where'd the kitten? Yeah, where is the kitten? Definitely, making any kind of connection. If you're comfortable doing that, give it a go. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so we've gone through... Oh, what do you want to see more of?
Oh, this is my wish list, my Christmas list for Kickstarter projects. I would love to see, I personally just, sustainability is really important to me. So seeing projects that really focus on sustainability, on the food system, vegan, these things are really important to me. I'd love to see more events and pop-ups. As someone, there's a lot of chefs who do those kind of things. I would love to see that. I think the drink sector on Kickstarter is really strong, and I'm really excited to see what people are going to do with that. I love coffee, I love roasteries, but I also like, bottled drinks too. So I love seeing that. I'd like to see more innovative snack foods, just where people can take that, with all the awesome trends we're seeing with all the new superfoods and, adaptogens and all those kind of things. I would love to see those kind of things too. I always like seeing good food media, such as shows and documentaries.
Are you guys can do that too?
What's that?
That would come under the food category as well?
It can. It's all up so creators choose what category they're going to be in. So they often choose film, some of the subcategories in there, or in publishing, they might choose publishing, even though we do have a cookbooks subcategory in food. Mm-hmm. So it's up to the creator, but depending on what it is, sometimes I talk with them, there are more of me here, but that cover different categories as well. So yeah, you'll be taken care of.
Now, when you see do you see all of the food? I mean, do you literally, the day somebody posts something in the food category, you go and check it out and just take a quick glance through and see whether it's, ready to go, in your opinion, good, bad, ugly?
I try to. So we do not. So we did a lot of work. When I started Kickstarter, we looked at every single project, and I was brought on to look at every single food project. Mm-hmm. We changed our policy about 1.5 years ago, where we actually created robots to do that, and there's sophisticated algorithms on the site because we just have so many projects. This is really to get things out there faster.
Yeah,
so there's a good chance if you submit a project on Kickstarter to be approved, you'll be auto-approved. And that's a wonderful thing. Sometimes you may have to have your project reviewed by a human being. I do not do that. We have other wonderful humans that will take care of that and take care of you, and it'll be a fast and painless process. But after that, when a project goes live, I do try to see every project on the site. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time because there's a lot of other things that I have to divide my time with. But I try to take a quick glance at least every food project on the site.
And do you ever reach out to the people who are putting that project or running that project and give them some tips, suggestions, or is that not part of what you either allowed to do or do?
Oh, I sometimes do. Yeah, you may mysteriously hear from me. I'm trying to make a more concerted effort to do that. Again, like there's so many things I can do in the day. I know it's hard to believe that, but I try to. Yeah. The
reason I asked the question is I'm thinking because of just the experience you have at Kickstarter, you could probably look at an application either before it launches or after it launches and say, oh, they really should have done X, or they really should have done Y, or, this is going to do well, but it would do crazy well if they just did, one more thing.
Yeah, I know. I would love to make a robot and help me do that. Yeah,
a Terry robot.
Terry robots coming your way.
And it sounds like from a conversation we had the other day that one of the main things is A, a video, and B, a short video.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal for conversions and getting people engaged.
Yeah, I know. I think we had differing opinions, but I think they kind of fall pretty close. I sometimes say 2 minutes, 2.5, because I know people like to tell a lot of their story in there. Definitely shorter. I think we discussed 30 seconds. I think it's incredible. I think if you could do an incredible trailer, that's like thinking like a movie producer. This is hooking people in, not telling your entire story, just hooking them in with 30 seconds. If you need a little more time, I think it can be done and be watchable in about 2 minutes. When I see a 6-minute video, I'm like, ooh, you're not going to really have very good conversion rates and a lot of drop-offs then. So, there's a whole world of talking about how to do videos and theories on the best practices, but short, sweet, and don't waste your time with things that can be told in the project description. Mm-hmm. You have a giant page of information that you could put on Kickstarter. Don't talk about your rewards in detail. Don't list every single tier. Don't show talk about every single business plan moment you have. These are things that you have an entire project to talk about.
I also loved what you said the other day, which is if you've got 20 minutes of really great video, get the most important, most compelling, that's going to talk to the tribe's passion in the first couple of minutes, and then maybe have a couple of videos underneath those within the content, within the write-up, because people can always scroll down and then watch the additional info if they're really caught up in what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's super powerful. Make great use of that. Use the footage of you in the commercial kitchen, making and packaging your jerky. Use that footage. Use it. You can use it in an update too, also. But so there's definitely a home for all that footage you're going to make when you do your video.
Okay. Yeah. Now, where do people connect with you or connect with, obviously Kickstarter.com, but where do people connect with you or whether it's socially or whatever?
Okay. With hesitation, but I'll say you can write to Food at Kickstarter, and if you have any questions. But honestly, there's so much on the site. If you really want fast information about how to do a Kickstarter project, go to Kickstarter. Go to Kickstarter proper. Because there's a lot of basics that I think you will have great use with. There is the Creator Handbook that will walk you through all the basics. They're going to tell you how to build your page. They're going to tell you how to create an account, how to set up your bank account information, how much does Kickstarter take regarding your project, if you successfully fund. All these things are in plenitude on the site. There's another wonderful resource called Campus. So Campus we recently opened it up to the public. So now you don't even need to have a Kickstarter account to look at Campus. So Campus is a site where it's like a message board embedded in the site where creators talk to each other about everything you could ever wonder about when it comes to making a project on Kickstarter and fulfilling it and shipping it and making the video and finding the right PR, like all that kind of stuff. Creators, who are your best resource of all, are talking about on the site. So please go there too.
So I've heard of people who have paid other people to put their Kickstarter together for them. I've also heard of people who have invested, $3,000, $5,000 on all the bits and pieces, the video and all that sort of stuff to do a Kickstarter for, I don't know, 15, 20K or whatever.
Yeah.
It sounds like some of those resources would make those services unnecessary or... Yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
So these are all third-party groups. They evolved outside of Kickstarter. And I just have to say, I've heard from every creator, I've heard different kinds of stories of it helped them. They felt it was a huge waste. Ultimately, it's buyer beware. If you feel that you need to go ahead and use that kind of source, that I would say, do your homework, do your due diligence, have them show you project creators they've worked with. Look at the projects that you do like, the videos that you are a fan of, the projects that resonate with you. And you could also do some homework from there. Who did they use? Did they use anyone at all? If you're lucky enough to live in an urban area like New York City or LA or Chicago, you're surrounded by creative people who probably would be pretty keen on helping you with a video or helping you write some compelling copy for your project, or teenagers or 20-somethings or 40-somethings that are really good at social media and love Instagram or love Twitter and can probably help you do that too for, within your budget. So resourceful is key here. And definitely I recommend seeing what you have at hand before just throwing a ton of money at someone who claims to be an expert in this, unless they have incredible credentials. Yeah,
I think that's an incredibly good point. I mean, if people are seeing Kickstarter as sort of the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey, being a successful entrepreneur is about getting out there and connecting with random people who you think might be useful one day, and then they've got friends, and suddenly you've kind of got a whole group of people prepared to help you and build out your business. So getting out, using Kickstarter as an excuse to kind of get engaged with a wider group of people, not even necessarily people that are instantly going to help you in the next 5 minutes, but just establishing relationships with all sorts of different people.
Yeah, it's plunging into the incredibly uncomfortable but necessary world of building your business. You can't do it alone. You're gonna have to do this work anyway. So why not give it a crazy go with Kickstarter?
The interesting thing about Kickstarter though is everybody's getting better at it. I've got a Kickstarter app on my phone, and I think I mentioned one point that if I'm sleepless in the middle of the night, I'll literally be sitting there with my phone looking at all the crazy stuff that's on Kickstarter because it just excites me. The interesting products, how people are coming up with weird and wonderful, amazing, incredible things. But they're getting better and better at representing that to the community. And that's a little intimidating. In other words, what people put out as a Kickstarter a year ago is different than today. People are getting almost professional at representing themselves on your platform.
Yeah, it's intense. And it's different for every category too. It is definitely there's an entire set of expectations and almost a code of conduct that happens in the games category or in the design category versus some of these the smaller categories. And by smaller, I don't mean even project-wise. Food has a lot of projects in it. Mm-hmm. So I agree. There is a lot out there, and it can feel intimidating, and it may be worth your effort to go ahead and mimic some of the things you see in projects that you feel are really kind of have some kind of power to them or some kind of influence, but also be true to what you're doing too. Ultimately, a project has to feel genuine, and our community is pretty sophisticated, and they can smell marketing. like kind of just marketing with like a capital M. But again, like good marketing doesn't feel like that. It feels organic and sincere. So
now, if somebody puts a Kickstarter out, they put a lot of their heart and soul into it, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Is that it? Should they avoid Kickstarter for the rest of their lives, or are there ways to learn from that experience and to, pivot or change or I don't know, whatever, and come back a month later with some refinement on what they originally put out there?
So it definitely has happened. Probably the most famous example of that is Coolest Cooler. Coolest Cooler was not a success.
I remember that product.
Yeah, they failed the first time. They didn't fund.
But they killed it when I saw them. What were they? How much did they get? It was like $1 million, $2 million. It's something crazy.
10.
Holy shit!
It was a lot. But the first run, basically the same thing, didn't fund. And they stepped back and they looked at what was going on and they made some adjustments in their message and their story and their approach. And look where they are. I mean, so it does happen. And I'm a fan of, I think overall, and probably this goes beyond Kickstarter, is failure. The fear of failure often can paralyze us to the point of inactivity. And Kickstarter, I know a lot of people have this, I hear this a lot in my category. People think there's this big disgrace going on. Like, you're going to be disgraced by, I don't know about you.
My friends are going to think I'm a failure.
I'm a failure. So what? That's part of entrepreneurship, right? Most entrepreneurs who are out there who are super successful, don't they have like a laundry list of failure, of things that didn't really work out or awkward moments or things that just, didn't feel right or things that didn't go the way as planned. That's just part of life and that's part of doing business. And it's now part of Kickstarter. And we have many stories of people who failed and came back. People who failed in Kickstarter and maybe just went on to do something else. They learned that, maybe this project, maybe there isn't the need that I thought. Maybe this isn't quite, the right thing the world wants right now. Maybe down the road it'll work out. I mean, there's so much you're going to learn from failure, probably in many ways you wouldn't learn from success as well. So don't be afraid of it. It sucks, but don't be afraid of it.
I think one of the things is the fear of failure is often more painful and more unpleasant than the actual experience of the failure itself.
Yeah.
So in other words, in the past, I've been concerned about all sorts of different things, and I've felt pretty uptight about it. But then when that bad thing happens, and it sometimes does, it's not so bad, or it becomes the next stage in something that's much better. So. Yeah.
We survive. We'll make it through this. And the one thing I'll say about Kickstarter that's kind of nice is even if your project doesn't fund, and let's say you have a bunch of backers, you have 100 backers or 60 backers, you can still talk to those backers. You could still message them. You could still communicate with them and let them know what else you're doing. So yeah, you're not cut off from the world just because your project didn't fund.
Here's a crazy thing. I had a Kickstarter that didn't fund.
Okay.
And then they ended up doing it through some other route. I don't know whether it was, a competitor of yours or whatever. Sure. And they sent me a product anyway.
Okay.
After the fact. They were like, you backed us on Kickstarter, it didn't fund, but here's the product you wanted that we weren't able to get done for whatever reason. Which I thought was pretty cool. They kind of looked after their people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So I'm going to change tact on you very, very quickly. I think we've sort of probably scared people or reassured people or whatever we've done around Kickstarter. But of your 9 books, which are you most proud of?
Ooh, I got to say, Salad Samurai, which is my second to most recent book. And the reason why I like that is because I've had a shift in how I cook too. I started out with a lot of cupcakes, and because there was a need for that, there was a need for desserts like 8-9 years ago in the vegan world. But as things have gotten a lot more fruitful and more expanded, there's plenty of junk food for vegans out there. It's great. It's there when you need it. But I wanted to conquer salad. Because salad, if anyone who's vegetarian or even vegan knows that, salad is one of those at least when I was 16, one of the most hated things. You go to a restaurant or you eat out with your friends or your parents, and, everyone's eating actual food, and they're, eating nice big plates of hot food, and they're but there's salad, and you get served this like sad the lump of iceberg lettuce.
Yeah.
And like a plastic slice of tomato. And I thought, I know people like to eat salad, and I know they like entree salads. I'm going to make a vegan salad book. And I really felt weird telling people that for the longest time. When they're like, what are you working on? I'm working on a vegan salad book. I felt like that's saying I'm working on a rabbit food book for humans. Like, this salad just has a terrible rap sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I did this book. It focuses on entree salads, on big hearty salads with lots of, like vegan proteins on top, like barbecue tofu on top of like a coleslaw kind of thing with, almonds, whatever. So it's a very I like to think of my salads as troughs of food. Like, they're hearty, they're filling, they're everything. So I did this book, and people love it. Like, this book has been like my cult hit in some ways, where I have complete strangers telling me who aren't vegan how much it's made an impact on their lives. And of course, people who don't eat animal products are like, this is great. And I dedicated the book to 16-year-old vegans everywhere, who again are well-meaning people inflict terrible salad on them. And this is for them. And I don't know, I feel good. I feel like I've connected with something that for many years I loathed.
It's funny because one of our team members at FoodX is a vegan.
Yay.
And when she was at college, your first book, she said it was literally the book she used every single day, and she had never put two and two together that you were that Terry. You were the famous Terry that had helped her through college.
Awesome.
So that's your favorite book. Okay, your favorite book of your own.
Yeah.
What about favorite book outside of your own recipes? It could be a recipe book or just something completely random.
Trying to think here. It's like, I listen to too many podcasts now, so I have to say, I probably don't read nearly as much. Okay, I'll do a shout out with this. Michael Pollan's The Secret Life of Plants.
Okay.
It's a weird book. He's, everyone knows about Michael Pollan from Omnivore's Dilemma and everything, but I feel like this was a younger self of his, where he really wanted to understand the psychology of plants. I think it gave me interesting food for thought in the idea that plants actually are engineering us to spread, to propagate them rather than the other way around. It's fascinating, the ideas he has in there, that plants are literally training us to adapt to their world, rather than, we think of ourselves as farmers and agriculture, and you're manipulating plants even on a genetic DNA level. But I kind of like the idea that plants have another agenda. So.
Talking of podcasts, I was listening to one this morning, and it mentioned that most plants have a natural pesticide.
Ah, yeah.
Okay. Most plants have created a natural pesticide. Now, it doesn't kill the plants. It doesn't kill the pests. What it does is it says, I'm not pleasant, go away. So it's, humans, they just sort of decimate the complete ecosystem around the plants, and everything that could live anywhere close to a plant is dead. Whereas plants themselves have this natural pesticide, many of them do. And if you actually distill out that pesticide and take it as a human being, in other words, as a supplement, for example, it can get rid of a lot of the bad radicals inside inside of yourself, so that it helps to prolong all sorts of things. Some interesting studies around it.
Yeah, I love it. Bring on the plant go away. the unwelcome mats. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So, I think I'm going to let you go. I think you can go enjoy the rest of your day. I really do appreciate your time.
Okay.
So, Salad Samurai.
Yes.
That's your favorite book of your own from a recipe perspective.
It is, but I'm going to plug my new one, if I may.
Of course you may.
Yeah, that's Protein Ninja. That is the new one that came out this year. Well, it looks like Salad Samurai. It sounds violent, but it's actually a great book that focuses on using plant-based proteins such as hemp protein, pea protein, and brown rice protein powders in everyday foods, and in things like cookies and brownies and waffles.
Now, you're not one of these kind of cool indie publishers, are you? You've actually done it the traditional commercial way, right?
I've sold out. I've been selling out for over a decade now with DeCapo books. Yeah.
DeCapo books?
DeCapo, yeah. They're part of Perseus. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So where do people find these books? Amazon and all the wonderful usual places?
All the usual suspects. Try to go to an indie bookstore if you can. I'm always a big fan of supporting those and seeing what they got. But Powell's and Barnes & Noble and a few others, but definitely, Amazon, of course. Yeah.
So what's your favorite indie bookstore? If people happen to be wandering by on a Saturday and they've got their coffee in hand and there's an indie bookstore that's yours, where may they find you wandering through the stacks?
If they happen to be in Astoria, Queens, there's Astoria Bookshop, which is a wonderful shop that it's really very community based, and the owners of the shop have really been doing a lot of great things for Astoria for a long time. So if you happen to be there, check it out.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to summarize a couple of those things. Salad Samurai.
Yeah.
Protein Ninja.
Yep, you got it.
Protein Ninja.
Protein Ninja.
Protein
Yes.
Ninja. I was trying to persuade you yesterday to do a 10-year edition of your first book, right?
Yeah.
Which is called?
That is Veganomicon.
Veganomicon.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit of a mouthful. I have no idea how you arrived at that. Maybe
that's another podcast. But yes. So that is co-authored with Isa Chandra Moskowitz, who is a super famous vegan cookbook author in her own right and restaurant owner.
And you mentioned she has a restaurant where now?
She has one in Omaha called Modern Love, but she is opening one here in Brooklyn this year.
And that's going to be called Modern Love as well?
Yeah, I think like Modern Love Brooklyn, surprisingly enough. Yeah.
Do you happen to know when it might be sort of opening so people can keep an eye out in the neighborhood?
I actually do not know her opening date. I know that if you happen to be wandering around the Williamsburg area on Union Ave, you can see. You can see she has a giant mural on the side of the building that says Modern Love. So, yeah. So, go to Modern Love Brooklyn on Instagram, and I'm sure they'll keep you updated.
Awesome. Terry, thank you so much. You're just, as far as I'm concerned, one of the key celebrities in the food industry. Thank you for being amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. This was super fun.
I'm going to press pause, and then I'm going to thank you offline very quickly.
Okay.
All right.
Gotcha.